we've all experienced, that ultimate rug pull moment. Like you spend hours learning the rules of a new system, you try to apply them, and
And
then
the whole system just completely breaks down.
exactly. You think you've mastered the logic, and then the universe just laughs at you. So today we are looking at a document for this deep dive that basically weaponizes that exact frustration.
It really does. It's something else.
Yeah, it's an A1 English language lesson plan. It's titled Lesson 68 Irregular Past Verbs. But, we aren't here to just learn basic grammar today.
Right, Sonny, no.
We are going to deconstruct this document to see how educators use this tragically comedic story about a trip to the zoo to literally hack the human brain when logic completely fails.
It is such a fascinating artifact because on the surface, yeah, it's just a worksheet for absolute beginners.
It's a simple vocabulary.
Yeah, exactly. But if you read the actual internal notes, the stage directions, the bilingual markers, the specific errors it anticipates, it becomes this intense psychological blueprint.
It really does.
It charts the exact moment a learner's brain tries to be efficient, hits this massive wall of historical illogicality, and then has to be like coaxed through the trauma using narrative.
I love that you call it trauma because that is exactly how it reads. I mean, right at the top of the document, it establishes this incredibly specific, almost clinical atmosphere.
Oh, internal notes.
Yes, the system check notes. It literally says storage management, executing mandatory cleanup, deleting all audio files for lesson 66.
Just aggressively clearing out the past simple was and were files
Yeah.
to make room for the new trauma.
Right. And then it has this role and voice configuration section. It's so produced. It assigns the host, Anna, a female voice, slowed down to a speed of 0.82 and tells her to act like a, wait, let me quote it, patient but slightly exasperated grammar teacher.
Which is such a specific vibe.
And Lukas, the male voice, is at speed 0.80. And he's supposed to sound super excited about a monkey story but get increasingly annoyed by the grammar corrections.
It reads like a hazard warning, honestly. The document explicitly demands extra slow speed because the listener's logic is about to be suspended.
Yeah, to ground us in this cognitive roadblock. The lesson introduces what it calls the no EED rule.
Which is really the core mechanism of the linguistic rug pull here.
Break that down for us a bit.
Sure. So in English, the standard algorithmic way to indicate an action happened in the past is to just add the suffix ed.
Right.
You walk, you walked, you jump, you jumped. It is a highly reliable, super efficient formula. And the human brain, fundamentally, is just an engine that runs on formulas.
We just love patterns.
Exactly. We survive by identifying patterns and applying them to predict outcomes.
So when a learner finally grasps that heed rule, their brain builds this beautiful, efficient little highway. But then this document explicitly tells the learner to just abandon the highway entirely.
It forces a detour.
A huge one. It states, these action words do not use ed. They change completely. And it isolates 4 specific verbs.
The big 4.
Yeah. Go becomes went, eat becomes ate, see becomes saw, and have becomes had.
It demands an immediate and total suspension of the algorithm they just learned.
When I first looked at this, my immediate thought was to compare it to, like, a universal remote control.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, like you spend all this time programming it, and you're thrilled because it works on, say, 95% of your appliances. But then you realize your television, your refrigerator, your smartphone, and your car require entirely different, completely unrelated codes to operate.
Right, the things you actually need the most.
Exactly. The universal remote is useless for the things you use every single day.
I see where you're going with the remote control analogy, but,
Yeah.
well, a universal remote implies you have a conscious choice to use it or not.
Oh, true.
The reality of language acquisition is far more insidious than that. It's not a remote. It's like relying on your smartphone's autocorrect.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, your brain has built this incredibly efficient, subconscious, predictive text algorithm for ed. It runs in the background automatically. You don't even think about it.
It just fires on its own.
Right. But for these 4 specific words, you have to manually turn off your internal autocorrect, stop your momentum entirely, and type every single letter out by hand, overriding your brain's automated software.
That makes the extra slow speed instruction make total sense now. I mean, you physically cannot rush the process of overriding your own autocorrect.
No, you have to pause everything.
But it raises a massive question for me. Out of the hundreds of irregular verbs in English, and there are so many, why did the creators of this lesson plan isolate go, eat, see, and have for an absolute beginner?
It's a great question.
Like, why are these four the VIPs of broken logic?
because they represent the absolute bedrock of human experience and storytelling.
Okay, how so?
Well, consider the semantic weight of those four words.
Yeah.
Go represents physical movement and navigation,
Yeah.
right? Eat represents biological consumption and literally survival. See represents sensory perception and awareness of your environment. And have represents possession, relation, and state of being.
Hmm.
You literally cannot recount a basic day in your life without them.
That's wow. Yeah, you really can't.
You cannot tell a fundamental survival story without invoking movement, perception, consumption, and possession.
You can't just say, I moved my body to the market, I consumed bread, I perceived a friend, and I possessed a good conversation.
I mean, you could.
I could, and I'd be using perfectly regular adverbs, but I'd sound like a poorly programmed android from a 1950s sci-fi novel.
Precisely. You are forced to say, I went, I ate, I saw, I had. And this brings us to the mechanism of why these crucial words are irregular in the first place.
Yeah, why is that?
It's not just a coincidence that the most important words are the weirdest ones.
Wait, I totally assumed it was just bad design. Like, English is essentially this linguistic Frankenstein's monster stitched together from Latin, French, and Germanic roots, so there are just bound to be glitches in the code.
It's not a glitch, though. It's a feature of linguistic evolution.
Really?
Yeah. You're looking at it like an engineer looking at bad code. But you need to look at it like a geologist looking at rock formations.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Thousands of years ago, in the Proto-Germanic languages that eventually became English, almost all verbs were conjugated by changing the internal vowel.
Oh, like a totally different system.
Exactly. Think about the pattern of sing, sang, sung, or ring, rang, rung. That internal vowel mutation, it's called a blout, was the standard operating procedure.
Okay, so changing the inside of the word was the original rule. When did the ed suffix show up then?
The ed suffix was essentially a new piece of linguistic technology that emerged later. It was a lazy, highly efficient shortcut.
Humans love a shortcut.
We do. Instead of memorizing complex vowel changes for every new action, speakers just started slapping a standard sound on the end of the word. It acted almost like a virus, infecting newer verbs and standardizing the language.
So why didn't virus infect go, eat, see, and have? Why didn't they become goed and eated?
Because of frequency. Irregular verbs are basically linguistic fossils preserved in the amber of daily use.
Oh, I love that imagery.
For words we use 50 times a day, parents constantly corrected their children. The community reinforced the old weird versions so heavily through sheer repetition that the phonetic evolution that ate a virus just couldn't penetrate them.
Wow.
The words that were used less frequently succumbed to the new ed rule. So the irregularity of went or ate is actually proof of their ancient fundamental importance to human communication.
That is genuinely mind-blowing. So the irregularity isn't a mistake at all. It's a monument to how often our ancestors talked about moving, eating, and seeing.
Exactly.
But, while that historical context is fascinating for us sitting here, it is absolutely useless to the A1 learner staring at this document.
Oh, totally useless.
To them, it is just a massive barrier.
A barrier made even more complex by the cross-cultural nature of the document. Because the source material doesn't just present the English words, it includes specific bilingual markers.
Right, the Chinese translations.
Yeah. Throughout the text, we see Chinese provided for context. Next to the English word went, we see kule. Next to the monkey, we see huzi.
Which introduces a whole new layer of cognitive friction. The learner isn't just dealing with English being weird, they're actively translating from a system that makes total sense to them.
Exactly. Let's look at the mechanism of that friction. Mandarin Chinese handles the concept of time in a fundamentally different way than English.
How so?
Mandarin verbs do not conjugate. The verb to go ku remains exactly the same whether you're talking about yesterday, today, or tomorrow.
Wait, really? It doesn't change at all?
Not at all. To indicate the past, you don't mutate the verb. You just add an aspect particle, like lei, to indicate the action is completed.
That sounds incredibly logical. It's modular. You have your base action, and you just attach a little timestamp tag to it.
It is highly logical. So imagine the cognitive shock for this learner. They're coming from a system where verbs are stable, reliable entities. They arrive in English, they learn the ed rule, and think, okay, English is a bit clumsier, but at least there's a reliable timestamp tag I can attach to the end.
Yeah, ed is just the English version of le.
Exactly. And then this document tells them, no, for the most important words in the language, the entire word shapeshifts. The verb itself transforms into an unrecognizable entity.
Going from go to went is a complete architectural collapse of the word.
Ugh.
I mean, they don't share a single letter.
Nothing.
It would be like a junior developer learning a new coding language and discovering that the basic command to save a file changes completely depending on what day of the week it is. It's just madness.
And this madness leads to the most critical section of the document, which is the grammar focus.
Ah, yes.
This is where the text directly addresses the collision between the learner's logic and the language's chaos.
The document sets up this strict dichotomy of wrong, marked with a big red X, versus marked with a green check mark. And it highlights very specific anticipated errors.
It knows exactly what they're going to do.
It really does. It warns the reader, and I quote, "Wrong. I go to the park. Wrong. I eat an apple. Wrong. I seat a dog."
What stands out to you about those specific errors?
What stands out to me is that I want to actively defend the hypothetical student who makes them.
I completely agree.
Like, good and eated shouldn't be dismissed as ignorant mistakes. To me, these are signs of high intelligence. The learner has successfully identified a complex grammatical pattern, the algorithm that the suffix signifies a past action, and they are applying it with perfect, unyielding logic.
Absolutely.
Why is the English language punishing the learner for being logical?
It's a noble defense. But if we look at the cognitive science of language acquisition, logic is actually the enemy of fluency here.
Okay, explain that.
Well, if we let go slide, we break the shared social contract of the language. Communication breaks down. But your observation about students' intelligence is entirely correct. What the document is anticipating is a widely studied phenomenon called overregularization.
Overregularization. Okay, when I hear that term, my instinct is that the brain is essentially acting like an overeager pattern-matching machine.
That's exactly it.
It sees the ed rule, recognizes its efficiency, and just copy-pastes it everywhere, even where it legally doesn't belong. Is that the mechanism at play?
That is exactly the mechanism. Our brains are biologically driven to minimize what neuroscientists call free energy or surprise. We want the world to be predictable.
Makes sense.
When a child or an adult learner extracts the ed rule, they have built a predictive model. Overregularization is just the brain aggressively applying that model to minimize the mental effort of memorization.
So they don't have to hold 100 exceptions in their working memory.
Right. When a child says, "I eated," they aren't mimicking an adult because no adult says eated. They have literally synthesized a brand new word using pure logic.
They're acting as linguistic engineers trying to fix a broken system.
Yes, exactly. The learner isn't failing to understand English. They are actually understanding the primary rule of English too well. But the social reality of language demands that this instinct be actively suppressed. That's why the document provides the big red X. The brain's deep desire for logic just has to be overridden by the arbitrary consensus of the crowd.
And the cruelty of that arbitrary consensus is perfectly encapsulated in one of the specific examples the text uses, the word seed.
Oh, that's a brutal one.
The document warns, "Wrong, I seed a dog."
Now think about the unique cognitive trap this creates for a beginner. Because seed is an actual valid English word.
Ah, yes, the homophone collision. This is where the auditory processing system actively betrays the learner.
Exactly. If you were a beginner, you might have already learned the noun seed, like an apple seed or a seed you plant in a garden.
Right, a common A1 noun.
You know, fundamentally, the SED is a valid selection of sounds in the English language. So your logical brain takes the verb see, attaches the ed past tense algorithm, and produces seed.
And let's break down the mechanism of what happens in the brain in that exact millisecond.
Please do. When the learner speaks the word seed, the auditory feedback loop in their brain hears the word and checks it against their known vocabulary database.
Okay.
The database returns a positive match. Seed exists. So the brain gets a false positive confirmation that what it just produced is completely correct.
Oh, that is so unfair. It sounds right. It feels right. It is logically constructed, and the system just slams the door in their face.
Yep.
It's a catastrophic breakdown in verb conjugation disguised as a valid English noun. The learner says, "I seed a dog," feeling perfectly confident, and the teacher has to say, "No, that's wrong."
And the learner must think, "What do you mean it's wrong? I bought seeds at the store yesterday."
It creates immense cognitive dissonance. You have the collision of logic, homophones, and arbitrary historical rules happening all at once.
And this is precisely why rote memorization in a vacuum usually fails. You cannot just hand a learner a list of wrong and correct sentences, point at a red X, and expect those fragile new neural pathways to hold up under the pressure of actual real-time conversation.
because the logic will always try to reassert itself.
Exactly. The logic is stronger than a red X on a page.
Which explains the massive pivot the lesson plan takes next. To help learners survive this frustrating lack of logic, the document abandons the dry lists and introduces a narrative, a story.
It moves from abstract data to human experience.
Right. It recognizes that the brain is far more receptive to narrative architecture than to data tables. We evolved to remember stories, gossip, and threats.
True.
The section is titled Storytime the Hungry Monkey, with this brilliant subtitle, Lukas's Bad Day. This is where the document becomes a masterclass in meta-commentary. We are introduced to a dialogue between two characters, Lukas and Anna.
Right. The hosts assigned in the system check.
Exactly. And the document gives explicit instruction for hosts on how this dialogue should be delivered, dictating the emotional arc of the scene.
The instructions are quite specific. They state, read very slowly. Lukas should sound excited at first, but completely miserable at the end.
And Anna?
Anna is acting as a patient grammar teacher correcting a child.
We have to unpack the dual layers operating here. On the surface, this is a highly functional container for the data. We have the vocabulary from earlier, the zoo, the monkey, and the verbs eat and ate.
Right, the basic lesson elements.
But on a deeper level, this text is perfectly simulating the emotional toll of language acquisition. It is a grammatical tragedy.
It really illustrates the vulnerability of being a learner. Let's look at the mechanics of the dialogue.
Okay, let's walk through the beats. The document literally dictates that Anna starts the whole thing off. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lesson 68. Today we have a crazy story, but first, subscribe to our channel.
The mandatory opening.
Yes. And then Lukas jumps in. Hi, guys. Yes, subscribe. I had a crazy weekend. I went to the zoo. He is so excited to tell his monkey story. He is initiating a social bond.
And he used the correct verb went right off the bat.
Exactly. But Anna immediately sets the tone. She says, and you learned some very difficult grammar, right, Lukas? Grab your notebooks, don't feed the monkeys, and get ready to. Pause. Right. Repeat.
She establishes absolute authority.
So Lukas starts his story. He says, Anna, yesterday I go to the zoo.
He slipped up.
He is trying to share an experience, and how does Anna respond? She doesn't ask what animals he saw. She immediately arrests the narrative. She says, no, Lukas, go is an irregular verb. You must say, I went to the zoo.
The communication of the human experience is instantly derailed by the mechanics of the language. The social bond is rejected in favor of structural compliance.
Right. It's like pouring your heart out to a friend about a bad breakup over text, and their only reply is asterisk your.
That is exactly what it feels like.
But Lukas is resilient. He accepts the correction. He resets and tries again. Okay. I went to the zoo, and guess what? I see a very big monkey.
Oh, the trap?
He is building narrative tension. He is using the exact homophone trap we just discussed. And Anna sighs. The text actually includes the stage direction. Anna sighs, and she hits him with the rule again. Lukas, no. You cannot say seed. You must say, I saw a monkey.
Notice what the text is doing pedagogically here. It is having Lukas commit the exact logical errors, the over-regularizations of good and seed that were warned against in the grammar focus section.
Yeah, he's the stand-in for the listener.
Exactly. The lesson is taking the listener's own inevitable internal mistakes and externalizing them into a fictional character. It provides a safe distance. The listener gets to hear the mistake corrected without feeling the personal sting of the correction.
But the timing of Anna's corrections perfectly captures the maddening experience of trying to communicate when you lack fluency. Lukas finally hits his breaking point.
The monkey incident.
Yes. The stage directions say he's getting frustrated with the grammar. He shouts, fine, I saw a monkey, but then the monkey jumped, and he eated my lunch.
The climax of the narrative.
Exactly. This is his trauma. He has been victimized by a wild animal stealing his food. It's a primal violation. And how does Anna, our designated patient grammar teacher, respond to this tale of loss and hunger?
The text dictates, and this is so cool, Anna laughs a little bit.
She laughs, and then she says, oh no, but Lukas, the past of eat is ate. He ate your lunch. It is just brutal.
It really is.
It perfectly captures that specific feeling where your emotions are drastically outpacing your vocabulary. You are trying to express something visceral. A monkey stole my sandwich. And the person you are talking to is solely focused on whether you conjugated the verb correctly.
It highlights the profound power imbalance in language learning. When you operate in a foreign language, you are essentially stripped of your adult competence.
That's so true.
You possess complex adult experiences, trauma, and humor, but you only have the grammatical tools of a toddler to express them. Anna's reaction, laughing and correcting him like a child, rather than validating the adult who just lost his lunch, encapsulates the infantilizing dynamic that every language learner hates.
Which makes Lucas's reaction so incredibly validating for the reader. The text says he throws his hands in the air and shouts, "Yes, he ate my beautiful sandwich. I was so hungry." He is forced to aggressively, almost violently, incorporate the grammatical correction into his emotional outbursts, just to get the story over with.
And then we reach the denouement, which contains the final brilliant pedagogical trap.
Oh, it's so good. Anna finally offers some delayed sympathy. She says, "That is terrible, Lucas." And Lucas delivers the final blow to his own self-esteem. He says, "Yes, I did not have a good day. I had a very bad day."
The ultimate overregularization.
He was so close.
He tried to apply the ed rule to the verb have, creating hated.
Oh, yeah.
It is the logical conclusion of his grammatical despair.
And Anna facepalms. The document literally says, "Anna facepalms." She corrects him one last time. "Lucas, the past of have is had. You had a bad day."
Brutal till the end.
This leads to Lucas's final line, which I honestly believe is the thesis statement of the entire document. The instructions say he cries playfully and he declares, "Yes, I had a bad day, and English grammar is making it worse."
That is an extraordinary line to find in a standardized language lesson. The text actively acknowledges the learner's frustration.
It doesn't hide it at all.
It doesn't pretend that learning these arbitrary, historically mutated rules is easy, natural, or fun. By allowing Lucas to throw his hands in the air, to admit defeat, to state explicitly that the grammar is degrading his quality of life, the lesson plan validates the listener's own internal struggle.
It's giving them permission to be annoyed at the system.
Exactly. It lowers what linguists call the affective filter.
What's that?
When a learner is anxious, frustrated, or ashamed of making mistakes, their affective filter goes up, and their brain literally blocks new information from being stored in long-term memory.
Oh, wow. So stress actually stops you from learning.
Physically, yes. By using humor, by having Anna facepalm and Lucas cry playfully, the document diffuses the tension. The next time the learner inevitably says good or eated, they won't just feel the isolating shame of an error. They might recall Lucas and his stolen sandwich. They can afford to laugh at themselves.
It transforms a moment of cognitive friction into a moment of shared human comedy.
Beautifully said.
But so the learner understands the rule, and they've survived the emotional trauma of the monkey story. They get the joke. But understanding a concept conceptually and actually retrieving it under the pressure of real-time conversation are two entirely different neurological processes.
Completely different.
How do educators force the brain to build that fast retrieval pathway so the learner doesn't just freeze up in the real world?
That is the exact problem addressed in the final section of the document. We move from the passive absorption of storytelling into the rigorous mechanics of active recall.
Right. Earlier, Anna mentioned pause, write, repeat. The document outlines a final segment called the memory game. It's structured as a 4-round interactive finale.
It's basically a drill.
Yeah, the premise is that Anna provides a sentence in the present tense, like, "I go to the zoo," and Lucas must instantly convert it to the past tense. But he doesn't just quietly say the new word. The text requires him to explicitly vocalize the rules and the narrative connections.
Right.
In round 1, Anna says, "I go to the zoo," and Lucas shouts, "No ED! I went to the zoo."
The mechanism here is vital. In the previous segment, Anna was the one enforcing the rule and correcting Lucas. Here, Lucas has internalized the architecture of the rule.
He took the power back.
He is commanding himself, no ED. This is a widely recognized technique in cognitive psychology. By forcing the learner to retrieve the information without a prompt generating the answer internally rather than just recognizing it on a page, you strengthen the neural pathways associated with that memory exponentially.
And the punctuation in this final segment is impossible to ignore. Every single one of Lucas's responses ends with an exclamation mark. "No ED, change the whole word, I lost my lunch."
He is fully engaged.
It's not just there to show he's in a good mood. The act of vocalizing the rule, of almost shouting it, serves a physiological purpose, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It engages multiple modalities in the brain. You aren't just passively thinking the thought. You are physically producing it with your vocal cords, hearing it with your auditory cortex, and feeling the physical energy of the exclamation.
Like muscle memory.
Exactly. It cements the new pathway. It makes the breaking of the rule a physical, memorable event rather than an abstract concept on a whiteboard.
And he's not just retrieving the cold, hard vocabulary word, he's retrieving the emotion of the story. Look at the progression in round 3. Anna says, "I eat a sandwich." Lucas doesn't just say, I ate. He responds, the monkey took it. I ate a sandwich.
He's anchoring the rule.
Yeah, he is actively anchoring the abstract grammatical rule to the vivid, specific memory of the narrative.
Which culminates in what the text formally labels round 4, the climax. Anna says, I have a bad day, and Lucas replies, I lost my lunch. I had a bad day.
The emotional peak.
The grammatical rule converting have to had is now inextricably linked to the narrative's emotional peak. This is how educators hack the brain's memory systems.
It's so clever.
The brain discards arbitrary data, but it hoards emotional experiences. By attaching abstract, illogical data to highly specific, emotionally charged, and somewhat ridiculous imagery, you trick the brain into keeping the data.
Which brings me to a thought for you, the listener, navigating your own complex environments. Because the lessons in this A1 grammar document map perfectly onto the high-level professional domains we all deal with.
They really do.
Think about the systems you interact with every day. Maybe it's a massive, convoluted tech stack full of legacy code. Maybe it's an archaic legal compliance rule in corporate finance that exists just because. Maybe it's the bizarre, undocumented filing system your company uses that defies all logic. When you face that wall of illogical information, how do you handle it?
Most people try to beat it into their brains with brute force repetition. They stare at the spreadsheet or the code documentation, hoping sheer willpower will make it stick.
Right. And usually that just leads to massive burnout. What this document suggests is that you need to hack your own effective filter. Do you invent a vivid, somewhat ridiculous narrative to anchor that dry data? Do you visualize a monkey stealing a beautiful sandwich to remember a line of legacy code?
It sounds absurd, but the evidence strongly suggests that the brain prefers the monkey.
It really does.
Our minds evolved to track narratives, agents, and threats. We did not evolve to parse lists of arbitrary corporate rules or irregular verbs. When you encounter a system that breaks its own rules, you are encountering the friction of human history.
The fossils in the amber.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That legacy code, or that weird corporate policy, is the equivalent of the word went. It resisted standardization because it was too deeply embedded in the daily survival of the organization, just as went was too embedded in the daily survival of our linguistic ancestors.
So, synthesizing our deep dive today, we started with a seemingly simple A1 English lesson plan. But by deconstructing its internal stage directions, its scenarios, and its narrative, we explored the profound tension between our brain's relentless logical desire for pattern matching and the rigid historical chaos of the English language.
We analyzed the cognitive mechanisms behind overregularization, recognizing that mistakes like good and eated aren't signs of ignorance, but rather the brain's brilliant prediction engine working entirely too well.
Too smart for its own good.
Right. And we saw how the homophone trap of words like seed creates immense cognitive dissonance.
We unpacked the tragicomedy of Lukas and his trip to the zoo, highlighting the maddening vulnerability and power imbalances of trying to express adult trauma with beginner grammar. And we examined the neuroscience of active recall, seeing how educators use frustration, humor, and a sandwich-stealing monkey to anchor illogical rules in emotional memory.
The ultimate takeaway is that the systems we interact with, whether linguistic, technological, or social, are full of historical accidents. Recognizing them, understanding why your brain desperately wants to reject them, and finding the humor in the friction is the true key to mastery.
It's about accepting that sometimes the autocorrect is going to fail and you just have to type the weird word out by hand.
Yeah, exactly.
The lesson plan actually ends with a really fun call to action. Anna's closing line is, "What did you do yesterday? Did you go to the park? Did you see a monkey? Or did you eat a big sandwich?" Tell us in the comments using went, saw, and at pack.
Forcing the listener into active recall one last time.
Exactly. Which leaves me with one final lingering question for you to mull over. If our human brains are so deeply hardwired to minimize cognitive load, so much so that every new generation of children and language learners naturally invents perfectly logical words like goed and eated before society forces them to stop, is it possible that centuries from now, the sheer force of human pattern matching will eventually win out?
That's a wild thought.
Will language simply evolve to accept these logical forms to save processing power? Will a future deep dive, hundreds of years from now, look back at words like went and saw as unnecessary, frustrating relics of a harder time? Think about that the next time you have to memorize a rule that makes absolutely no sense.